ask the town. I'm going to ask the town manager to announce the protocols for the meeting.
And just as a reminder, as everybody heard, this meeting is being recorded. If I'm going to admit people as they join in the waiting room, I might ask you to identify yourself if you pop up with a name or number that I don't recognize. Ask that you please state your name and affiliation or address for the record when you begin speaking. There's a raise hand function if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. In addition, set up on the meeting for you to be able to send me a direct message via chat if you'd like to indicate that you'd like to speak that way. Ask that folks, when you're not speaking, if you could please turn off your video. It's easier for those who are joined remotely to follow along with the meeting. And last but not least, if we get interrupted in a way that it doesn't allow us to continue on, I'll end this recording and send out a new link via email to the town so we can start back up again, carry on the meeting. And that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And so we will begin with our public comment period. Is there any resident or guest that wishes to speak? Do we know if anyone
Go there in person.
is anyone in Zoom land?
I've not received any messages.
Okay, thank you. The next item is approval of the agenda.
I had one comment before the council made a motion on this. I noted this in my report, but might make sense to add, or that the town attorney can advise if it can just go on the consent agenda. But in order to get the number of the charter amendments need to be posted in a newspaper a certain number of times. And in order for us to get to that, we actually need to extend the effective date of it 2 weeks. So makes sense to just readopt those charter amendments so that we can get in the charter mandated advertisements in there.
So, Mr. Town Attorney, does that need to be on the?
That can be on the consent agenda.
Okay, so
The charter amendments would be readopted. State law provides, as Matt noted, we need to publish 4 times within a period of 40 days from the date of adoption. So give us more time to do that. I'm recommending that they be readopted.
okay, excellent. Do you want to craft some language so that for what the item should state?
Sure, it would state readoption of charter amendments to. Let me get the exact title.
I hope somebody's writing this down because you'll have to read it.
Say, I see something.
Okay, so because it's on record.
Charter amendments 3-22 through 7-22.
So it's to consider approval of them.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other additions or changes to the agenda? One of I'd like to request that the council delete is the item on the approval of nominees to fill council committee seats, because I have not completed my list, and I'm hoping to complete it by so they can be voted on very briefly at the night of the next work session. So with that, with those proposed changes, Mr. President, I'm here to make a motion on the approval of the agenda.
So I recommend that we approve the agenda as modified by the removal of nominations to fill town committee seats in the addition of the town code amendment extensions as described by the town attorney.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Heller. Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, our next item is to the non-consent agenda, which is a motion to consider approval of the following 2023 town council meeting dates as listed.
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, so we approved the modified agenda. Do we now have to approve the consent agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those, thank you, Mr. President. The next item is to consider approval of the following 2023 town council meeting dates. And I will turn it over to the town manager to review some of the possible changes to our regular schedule.
Sure. So in general, it's the first Monday of the month for our council meeting and then the third Monday of the month for our work session. There were a couple that fall on holidays, and generally what we've done is to just do the Tuesday if the meeting falls on the Monday. The only one I thought maybe is worth discussion is in January, if it makes sense to bump it that next week. So the council meeting on January 9th and the work session on the 23rd. That would give us an extra week to prepare basically for the council meeting instead of doing it that week in between Christmas and New Year's. The other ones would be the February work session that Monday falls on President's Day, in June that falls on Juneteenth, and September first month on Labor Day. The only other one I've highlighted is Monday, March 6th is Purim, so I didn't know if that was a conflict as well that we wanted to consider and move off that date.
I am probably the only one who partakes in that, but not necessarily. It's not a major, it's not like Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur.
Ooh.
I'm not sure I would change our schedule.
So the only issue that you might want to discuss is, historically, we've had the January meeting the day after. If New Year's falls on the Monday or the Sunday, we just have it the first open day of that week. So it's really up to you all. It's best for you and your schedules. So why don't I go around the room and see if there are any questions? Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
For questions, thank you for putting that.
Councilor Barr.
I think the January 9th date makes more sense. January 23rd for the work session because of Martin Luther King Day.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Heller.
No, I think it's a good change. And we're just talking about that date. I have some questions about it another. So
No, we're talking about the whole calendar, so
then I do.
ask any questions.
I do have a question. I just wonder, and I know historically this has not been the case, but I wonder if we shouldn't meet in August when so many people travel, not only us, but our residents travel too. It's, it's a big vacation period. And I noticed with other groups, that community groups, that they don't meet in August. So I'm wondering if we ever considered that. Is that a bad idea?
Well, the reason why we don't is because oftentimes there are building applications, and in terms of being respectful for the applicant, for example. And I don't, I think that whole thing about August is, then you just have too much extra work in September, so it's never really been a problem. So I'm not in favor of deleting the meeting. If people can't come, they can't come.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions? No question. Okay, thank you. Councilor Ravak.
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve the town council meeting dates as proposed by the town manager.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed, thank you. Next item. To consider a curb cut permit application submitted by Lena and Maurice Asaya to increase the size of the existing curb cut to 20 feet at the property located at 5524 Greystone Street. Mr. Town Manager.
And this is relatively straightforward. The code technically says that if a curb cut changes in size or location, the council needs to vote on it. But in essence, Mr. Saya has kindly joined us this evening, so he can explain in greater detail as necessary. But in essence, they have I think Doug measured it in a 18-foot curb cut as is. They just wanted to extend it to 20 feet and actually move it over a little bit on their property. But our code allows for curb cuts 20 feet where it meets the street, and then it needs to taper to 10 feet at the sidewalk, or if there's no sidewalk, as is the case here, 7 feet from the street. It needs to taper to 10 feet. So the applicants have worked with Doug to put together a sketch and ensure that it complies with the town code. Doug, I know you're with us. You might have something you want to add as well.
The only thing I would add that it would be in accordance with the sketch and also with the town's typical driveway apron detail, which is attached to the permit.
I think that's it from.
Okay,
from the staff.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Mr. Asaya, did you wish to comment on your application, on the report, or have anything you want to say?
I have two things to say. I think that why do we want that? We want to be able to park two cars in parallel to each other. That's the damage to the wheels going on the sidewalks. We have been hearing a lot of complaints about our street being reduced lane streets because there were so many cars parking in the street. So anything that will help park the cars away from the street is something I think which is positive. We're not asking much of it. Generously inward, so cars can stand next to each other and go.
Okay, thank you so much. I also wanted the town attorney have any wisdom he wanted to add on this application.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
I do, but they might be more for our town engineer. I'm trying to understand what the application is for exactly, because
It's cut now, is that it opens on the interior sidewalk. And that means that the whole width of the sidewalk is lost.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up with your question. Can you repeat it?
well, so
I think Doug, I think the applicant was answering.
Yeah.
But is that okay?
that's fine.
Move away from one side. So that the cars will have direct entrance. To the first one.
So I understand that the general objective. Thank you. When I look at our engineering report, it says that the existing driveway measures 19 feet at the curb line. It says that this is actually an application to relocate the driveway apron and move it 4 feet to the left. But when I look at the drawing, it looks like the current driveway apron is like 10 feet, so it seems like a significant increase. I'm just trying to understand what the change is going to be for the community.
Well, essentially, our two cars are parked inside down. So you can come and see the two cars there. There won't be any change. Simply that the access for one car will not be bumping into the sidewalk. That's all we want.
Maybe one of Doug
So
answer that.
So, yeah, I mean, it basically,
Hold
car is
on,
going over.
hold on.
Sorry, but the application says the sidewalk is not on our side of the street. But is the sidewalk on your side of the street?
No, it's on the other side. I'm calling sidewalk, our own sidewalk, from the street to our door.
Okay,
And the open space is facing that. We don't need that there, we can walk,
okay.
we simply want to move.
Did you want to ask Doug?
Yes.
It's in the interest now. For reducing the number of cars at once. Well,
Thank you.
I even decide all the trucks and Cedar which are coming, have been going for more than a year now. Our house.
And yes, there's a lot of construction going on. Sorry, maybe this is for Doug. The application says that the application is to increase the driveway access from 120 inches to 200 inches. So that's increasing it from 10 feet to, I guess, like 18 feet. But then in the engineering report, it talks about it being a 19 feet to start with. I'm just confused as to what's happening. Can you provide some extra detail, Doug?
Yeah, well, they provided the application, which did not conform to the town code. So after meeting with the applicants, I prepared the sketch that I believe you have as part of the permit package, which does comply with the code. But basically what they want to do is widen the driveway from 19 feet to 20 feet and also shift it 3 to 4 feet to the left. So it would comply with the code, 20 feet at the curb, 10 feet, 7 feet back, which is about at the front property line.
Okay.
But the information they supplied in the application did not conform to the code. So that's why I created my sketch.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't mean to deliberate too far. I was just confused. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Barr.
Right, so at the moment you're saying that you're having to bump over the curb to park the two cars in the driveway, if that's right. And what this will do is make it easier for the cars to get in. That's it, it's that simple. All right, that's it, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Heller.
No questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Kumar.
Just a question for Doug. Doug, this is in compliance with the town code.
The sketch that I prepared does, yes.
Yes, and Matt has the applicant in your signature.
Yes.
They all, okay, no more questions.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Rovak.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there, Mr. Town Manager, are there comments or questions from any resident or guests?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Baird, motion.
First, is there any discussion for us?
Oh, okay. I forgot. I'll turn it over to the council president to lead the discussion.
think it'll be quick. As Robin summed up, this makes a great deal of sense, and I don't have any further questions. I was just trying to get a clear picture in my mind of what was going to be happening. Robin, do you have any other questions, comments?
No, I don't, no.
We're Debbie,
No.
Shannon. Okay, then I move that.
Okay,
Sorry, I have to find it.
take your time.
Oh, I knew there. I move that the council approve a curb cut permit application submitted by Lena and Maurice Aseo to increase the size to increase the existing curb cut to 20 feet at the property located at 5524 Greystone Street.
Okay, I see, Councilor Kumar, is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, thank you very much, thank you, sir,
Thank you for coming.
for
Thank you.
coming tonight. The next item is public hearing motion to consider approval of a tree removal permit submitted by
Thank you.
Deborah
Thank
Schulman
you.
for the removal of the following 2 trees on the property located at 4906 Fallstone Avenue, as recommended by the town arborist, 839 silver maple, dead branches and cracks in the main trunk, and the 33-inch red maple, dead branches and crack base. Mr. Town Manager.
Trying to get Tolbert to hop on and join us. But the mayor succinctly explained what it is. The only question, the only reason why it might be useful to have Tolbert is just a reminder that part of the reason we moved single tree removals onto the council agenda was so that the council had an opportunity to impose a replanting plan in consultation with the town arborist. So Tolbert hadn't recommended any replanting, but I thought maybe we want him here to be able to answer any
Is he
questions.
supposed to be on the way? I guess we're ahead of schedule.
Linda's contacting him right now.
Okay, well, let's put this on hold. Is the applicant here? Is she here?
Looks like she's not here either.
Okay, so let's put this on hold and turn it over to Doug for his report. Mr. Baumeyer.
Couple things, at 4501 and 4503 Cumberland, those 2 projects have been removed from the list and we're closing out that permit for those 2 permits. At 4900 Cumberland Avenue, the council extended the permit until May and work has not begun on that project yet. At 5522 Greystone, the council approved a 6-month extension for the construction of that project, and that work is ongoing and hopefully will be done by April. At 5522 Uppingham, the building permit was revised to include the porch and roof, and that work is ongoing. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
Yes, please, Doug. 4524 Dorset Avenue. This is the house the council approved, the ADU and like a bump out to the garage, like a carport. But I haven't, it seems like they're just finishing off the work at the end of the driveway and not putting in a carport. Do you have any information?
What was that address again?
The 4524 Dorset Avenue.
4524 is under permit with the town and they're complying with the permit. The council did grant them a waiver to extend the front of the driveway, a garage towards the driveway. So they're complying with that.
I was just curious about the work. I hadn't seen the work proceeding on the carport.
I don't think they started that yet. They installed a door, but that's all they've done, I believe.
That's it. That's all I've seen is the door. Do you know when the permit expires?
The council, I believe, gave them a 2-year permit, so it expires in
January of
January
2020.
of. No, I'm sorry. They got a 2-year permit, so it expires in May of 23.
So,
I'm
So
sorry,
did you
November
want-
of 23.
did you want did you want Doug to contact them to find out?
It was more curiosity. Thank you.
Well, Doug, maybe you could find out what the plan is.
As long as they're not about to run up against and expiration of their permit, I don't think there's an issue.
Okay, did you have any other?
No other questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate
Councilmember
it.
Barr, do you have any questions?
Yes, on 4816 Essex Avenue, I just want to know whether there's been any movement there yet. The staff contacted the architect who said they would be submitting a concept soon. When did the staff contact the architect and has concept been submitted?
Matt and I have both talked to them and they keep saying something's coming.
Okay.
Well, the last, the only thing I would add is the last that I heard from them in September is that they had said they were revising the scope of the work to mostly contain it to interior renovations. So I can check back in with them. They said that they were that in September, they said that they would begin interior demolitions in November. So I don't know if they have completely changed what the scope of the project is going to be, or if they're just taking it on in pieces, but I can follow up.
Would you follow up with them?
Yeah.
Thanks.
They have not applied to the county yet.
Is that,
That's it.
okay, thank you. Councilmember Heller, do you have any questions of Doug?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kumar.
Just wanted to confirm the permit worksheet, is that a new feature?
Yeah, I think you had requested if it would be helpful to have, so I know it doesn't
love
have
it.
all the information.
I love it.
Fully
Thank
filled
you
out yet.
so much for this new feature. It's nice to see it. And so just wanted to say thanks for doing that. It's nice to see that. I can talk to you offline. You could organize a little bit, add
Okay.
some more things
Yeah,
to it. But
sure.
it's a nice summary. I don't know if other council members have seen it, but it's a nice little summary. Then the narrative.
That is nice.
Thank you, Matt and Doug.
An interesting
No
question. I
question.
have
Okay,
the expiration date.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions of Doug?
I too like the spreadsheet. I have no questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I think now, has Dr. Feather arrived?
Dr. Feather is with us.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Feather. So we will go back to the item regarding tree removal permits submitted by Deborah Schulman. And I'll turn it over to the town manager.
And I will turn it over to the town arborist.
It's very dramatic. Someone's missing.
Wow. This is all being recorded too,
It's all protocol.
Two trees, the resident requested 2 trees to remove at 4906, red maple 33-inch diameter and a silver maple 39-inch diameter. The red maple is in poor structural condition. It has a crack at the base and it's had 2 large limbs stripped out of it by wind or ice storms. And the same thing with the silver maple, has large pieces of dead wood in it and also a crack in the main trunk. So they're both hazardous and I recommend removal.
Okay, thank you, sir. Council President Circo, do you have any questions? Oh, no, is the applicant here?
She is not. I reached out. Moment.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
Dr. Feather, do you recommend any replanting, reforestation?
I haven't spoken with her. I mean that we can include that if you want. I don't know if you've all seen them there. It's on the Greystone side of the property. So there it's a big piece of land there that kind of is on that embankment.
Thank you.
I haven't been recommending reforestation for these. If you want me to start doing that, I can.
I guess this is 2 large canopy trees, and if the property has available space, it would be nice to be desirable to at least replace one of them.
Okay.
But that's just my thought. That's why I was looking for your.
No, there's space for them once those are taken down.
That's something you can discuss when you're debating.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council Member Barr.
Yeah, I'd just like to second what Steve was saying. It is a loss of canopy trees for the town. They are in bad shape and they need to be taken down, but perhaps reforestation plan with a canopy tree would be an appropriate thing, yes.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Heller.
Is the tree that's coming down is on the Shulman's property, so it's their tree, is that correct?
Both of them, yes.
Okay, is it in our purview to say you have to plant a tree, or we can just suggest? Because they're paying for it, right? It's not a town tree going up there.
Maybe the town attorney can clarify, but I think in general, previously our town code had been that if 3 or more trees were being removed at once, it would go before the town council. And similar to a building permit, the council might attach conditions to a granted permit. The council, now it's evading me exactly when it was, but we updated our code. And instead of
7 months.
Instead of it being 7 months ago, okay, so in May, we updated the code so that instead of it being a strict number of trees, we looked at the total diameter of trees being removed. And so since these 2 trees are above that threshold, it's that same process. So the council needs to give the permit and can attach conditions to that permit.
This was a PNR.
Oh.
But to come down or plant?
The update to the code, if you remember.
Okay.
Okay.
all right.
Do you have any other questions?
No,
Okay, thank you, Councilor Kumar.
Matt, that was one of my questions to you or to the town arborist. What was that threshold? Like this number
45 inches?
24,
24.
and what is the
24.
total here?
24.
Total
It's-
here, I
If,
believe.
if a tree's over 24, if there's 2 trees, if they add up to 24.
And what was the total here?
Total here is 72.
Okay,
It's a lot of tree.
and could you clarify where they are located exactly on the property?
If you, 4906 is the last property on the south side of Fallstone. So it's on the corner of Fallstone and Greystone.
Okay,
So they're on the, if you're driving down towards Greystone, they're on the left-hand side.
yes,
And they're on the Greystone side. They're in that part of the yard. They're not in the front yard, they're in the side yard.
they're on the side here. Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
That's
Okay,
it.
thank you, Councilor Rovak. Do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Town Manager, are there any comments or questions from our residents or guests?
No, I feel a little bad because Ms. Schulman had said that she planned to jump on, but still
are
not
really-
here. We are a couple minutes early.
But she's told that we're not. It's a 20-minute.
Yeah.
So now I will turn it over to the council president. Lead the discussion.
So I want to say, I thank you, Kabir, for asking the question about the diameter. For some reason, I don't know why I was thinking it's over 40 inches. So this is a significant diameter over our threshold. My thoughts, just to get to the second point, is that we should, in the interest of safety, we should approve the removal, both the condition that a reforestation plan be provided, and since the applicant's not here, then we'll have to hopefully in a very positive, collaborative way, work out that at another date.
Well, maybe we should ask the town attorney how to actually craft it in the motion.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Sure, so, the code does allow the council to impose conditions, as the manager noted, and those conditions can be the replanting of trees, so the council can decide how many is appropriate.
But would
The
there be?
decision
Yeah, go ahead.
generally needs to be made tonight, unless you're gonna have, another hearing on the number of trees.
But couldn't they decide to allow the removal with the requirement that the applicant come back with a plan.
Yes.
At the next possible time. I think, is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, it's just.
Well,
You do lose a bit of leverage when once the trees are already gone.
Except it would be a violation. But isn't there a way to craft it so that she would be required? And she would be required to submit something that they.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I
The
don't know.
permit would be conditioned.
So
upon-
why would you think that would lose leverage when she's required to do it? Because I mean, to take the tree down, it's sort of a no-brainer that it's a health hazard. But then, so I don't know I don't understand the leverage thing, but that's fine. Okay, continue.
Oh,
But then weren't
That
you
was it,
gonna,
but-
weren't you gonna,
and we should go around. Robin, do,
Yeah, I mean, I would have voted on it. Dr. Schulman knows that we're considering the motion tonight, so I hope that she or a representative could have been here. What I propose is a reforestation plan. Includes either one canopy tree to be planted, or if they can show that another canopy tree is already growing on the property, that would be sufficient. And leave it at that, and do that tonight, so.
right, so since we would need to have Dr. Feather do another sort of inspection, looking at that type of reforestation thing, what's practical or necessary.
Sure.
well, let me ask another question to the town attorney. So if the council is to impose a requirement on the applicant, Mr. Town Attorney, and if she didn't agree with it, wouldn't she have the ability to appeal it? If they decided on some specific.
Yes,
And I guess the reforestation plan, to get to your point, Robin, maybe the reforestation plan is, there's nothing.
That-
It's already because other trees have already.
Exactly,
grown
yes,
here.
it could be.
And that's over. I just think we should consider that closely. Okay, thanks.
And you say we should consider closely that there might be enough trees on the property already that have canopy, or that we should, lay out, say, yes, you have to plant more trees.
Right, the motion would be that either show that there are canopy trees already growing on the property. Over time, the canopy trees that are coming down, or propose reforestation plan to accomplish canopy trees on the property.
Can I get it?
That sounds good. Let's keep going around.
Well, this is one of the new changes. So, my approach to these things is that we should have a sort of learning mindset, because we haven't really implemented it. This is not a body of sort of hearings and rule making, so to speak, around it. So, I mean, my first question, I might want to understand maybe from fellow council members if we think the sort of threshold is too low. I mean, it's so easy to surpass the threshold with one, and we are most likely going to see canopy trees of this size. Right? Like, I'm just wondering, is that threshold too low? That we quickly surpass it? Is that a right question even to
So
ask?
I don't know if it's too low or not, we'll know over time, but what it's meant to catch is when we lose significant canopy trees.
Yeah,
And the what we lose here. It's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
24 inches may be too little, but this is big.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we are, and so in terms of our objective, we meet it, but it just as a kind of like, just to
I
keep
think
an
we'll
eye
see
on,
over
is that
time if
too
that's
low?
okay.
Yeah, is it too low a threshold? I definitely think we should approve it today, given the hazardous nature and the town arborist. But I'm inclined to just kind of keep it open on the reforestation plan. We just don't know what the property looks like. right? And just let her come back with it. With your point, Steve, it's sort of a collaborative mindset around it.
Well, I think that's what Robin is sort of defining in a little bit more detail, that they would come back to us
Yeah,
with an either or proposal, either they will try to convince that they have enough other canopy trees
yeah,
growing on their property,
yeah.
or they will offer to plant
Offer to
some.
plant some, yeah, okay, fine,
I don't think these people are gonna be unreasonable.
okay.
Shannon?
Just like in there, then what size the tree that would have to be replanted is?
Talbot can tell you more
Well,
about this,
yeah,
actually.
Standard size is 2 to 2.5 inch caliper. They're like maybe 10 to 12 feet tall.
Yeah,
And then what happens if the tree dies?
Typically, correct me if I'm wrong, Tolbert, but I think what we do is what we've done in the past and for, like, for example, we take out a tree, there's a warranty period for, is it a whole year, Tolbert?
2 years.
2
Yeah.
years, okay, where we basically hold on to, make sure it takes, and then.
until it's rooted.
Until it's, yeah, and then at that point, it's, of course,
The
an
2
act of
years
God
will
can
work.
happen, but after 2 years, it's a better bet that it's longer.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Robin, do you want to
Yeah,
sum it
right,
up for proposal?
right. So, in 2 parts, we approve the removal of the maple trees with the condition that, the applicant either provides a reforestation plan or shows us that canopy trees are already growing on the property that will replace these trees.
Second,
Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally and technically sufficient?
Well, I do have some quick thoughts. Mr. That's a need for a second hearing, because the council would need to determine whether the reforestation plan is appropriate. This is somewhat of an unusual approach, because just applying the code strictly, you know, the council has a list of criteria to consider. And one of those is reforestation. So the council is making a decision that the application can be approved because the trees are hazardous. But then, you know, holding the application open for consideration of another issue that arguably doesn't have to be decided to grant that permit. So that it strikes me as a bit odd and potentially.
So can you
Problematic.
help council
So I
member
think the
Laura
decision-
craft something?
Ron, may I ask a
Since you seconded, yeah, go ahead.
I think hazardous is one of the criteria, right? We can apply. So we are applying that criteria. We approve removal because it's hazardous. Is that right?
Correct.
But you're saying we are then additionally applying this other criteria. Can you clarify that?
Yes, and
Because we are-
that additional assessment isn't necessary in order to grant this permit.
Because we are using the hazardous,
Right.
exactly.
And that's why traditionally, perhaps it's fair to say the council hasn't imposed reforestation when the arborist has recommended removal based on the hazardous condition. As you know, generally speaking, permit conditions are meant to, you know, address the impact of a decision that might be a close call.
And the way the code is written, these are mutually exclusive.
No, and no one factor outweighs another. So I think you could do it, but the way to do it would be, you know, based on the information supplied by the arborist and based on the discussion deliberations council has had tonight. The council does find that reforestation should be compelled. You know, the trees are hazardous, but they're a loss to the canopy, so reforestation should be compelled. But maybe the motion should be tweaked a little bit to say the council finds that removal is appropriate based on the hazardous condition, provided replanting is done, and the replanting shall either be 1, 2 trees, or no trees if, or 1 or no trees if the applicant demonstrates that there are already
Pre-existing.
sufficient
Okay, so,
canopy trees.
so is that acceptable, Councilor Barr?
Yes.
Because well, I didn't hear the second, so we're still. Okay, so do you want to restate the motion so that Councilmember Hilmer can second it? To make sure that it's what Councilmember wanted. Mr. Town Attorney.
Sure, yeah, I think the council does need to decide whether it would be 1 or 2 trees. The motion would be to approve the permit based on findings that the trees are hazardous, with the condition that loss of canopy be offset with the replanting of 1 or 2 trees. Unless the applicant demonstrates at a subsequent hearing that there are sufficient trees already existing on the site.
Councilor Barr said.
That satisfies me. I mean, I'd be more generous and say at least 1 tree. So that doesn't have to be 2 trees.
Okay.
But beyond that, yes.
Okay, so you changed it to at least 1 tree.
Yeah.
Okay, is that, are
Second.
you down with that? Okay. Okay, is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All right. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was just confused about like how do they know what tree then that they have to plant? Like, is it just any old tree? Or does it, I mean, I know you said.
Canopy,
Canopy.
a set of trees that will grow tall to give tree cover, ones that are around town, sizable.
And are those the same? I mean, do we instill those same requests for the people that are taking the trees down for building a new house?
Well, that's a great question, and the motion should be amended because the code does provide that the replanting trees shall be planted at a time and location on the property in accordance with an approved replanting plan or as otherwise approved in advance by the town arborist. So the motion could say reforestation with at least 1 tree at a time and location and of a species approved in advance by the town arborist.
Okay, so do you want to make it?
I think
Well, I'm just wondering, because like, it seems like I've seen some of the trees that have gone up in some of these, you know, places where they've taken down trees and then built new homes, and those trees are pretty small. I mean, are we expecting, you know, Ms. Schulman to put up a tree that's much bigger than what, you know, a lot of these little trees are?
I don't think in our code for building permits applies here, right?
I'm just wondering, like, the equitability of it all, you know,
No, I agree with
like,
that. I agree with
so,
that.
I
I'm just
mean,
wondering
if
what is
we, like,
possible.
saying, oh, she's got this tree that is dying, and now she has to plant these, you know, elaborate big tree, I don't know, like, how to, you know.
Well,
what
we have
to
to
address
find
it.
out.
A big tree, a canopy tree that is 12 feet tall and at least 2 inches diameter, which is the standard.
And is that the
think-
same that we require for,
Yeah, the Shannon's point is that if we are asking this person who's not in a construction project, who just lost 2 trees, not because of any negligence.
and they're probably sad about it.
Yes, and now we're asking them to replace them with canopy in accordance, by the way, of the code, which we updated earlier this year. You're saying that is one thing, but doesn't that seem unfair when in a construction project, we are unable to then require the same thing
Yes,
when in a canopy tree is replaced? That is true. That's undeniable. That's
We
true.
need to fix our code.
The answer to that is that we have to then.
yeah,
keep-
because like, you know, these trees are like this big around, and they're like, oh, I planted 7 of them, and it's like, okay, I mean. So I feel like we should hold everyone accountable to the same tree structure. And so, you know, that, so that it's fair for everyone.
Why can't we?
We can.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
you
like,
have to change the
new
code.
build,
We need to change our code though, because the code for new buildings doesn't have the detail in it that our tree code has. That's the issue.
And so my question to Ron was, the tree code sits independent of the building permit code, correct?
Correct.
So what we require of trees, generally speaking, are not required of trees as part of a building permit.
Correct, but historically, if the building permit application is pending with a tree removal, you hear them together.
But, and then that's when we apply the tree code. So we would have the ability,
That's it.
To do the
I thought we
would,
I thought
I
the
just don't
council
think
has
we can.
imposed.
we probably have not, have we not?
Well, I mean, there is a tree, there is a reforestation plan that is part of the building, and Talbot has reviewed it and provided it to us.
I guess, okay, so you're saying, to be fair, here, we cannot require canopy. That's what you're saying. We can require reforestation, a replanting of some kind, but we cannot require canopy. Is that right?
Why not?
I think we can.
No, I mean, I'm just saying that I think that they should be the same.
I think
I
that,
see, we should, so you're saying, okay, it's the other way around, then moving forward for a building.
Yeah,
Application.
so that
be
we should
cognizant.
require, a certain type of tree to be planted, that's gonna be. A tree that grows to be nice in size and have a canopy and all of those things instead of. A little twig.
If I may just quickly say that I think in Tolbert, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically with a building permit application. Tries to do a reforestation plan that ends up as a 1-to-1 as best practicable. But to your point, part of the issue when a tree is removed is that the trees that are planted are so much smaller than a canopy tree that is removed. That's part of the reason that the code was updated in this way, so that over time, we're trying to replenish it, but absolutely, we're taking out 72 inches of diameter and only 2.5 is going in.
It will take some time for it to get to.
50 years from
Yeah,
now,
because in our, but what it's worth, in our case, we were by the council required to put in a canopy.
Yeah,
But we went with the Tolbert's recommendation, it's a sapling,
yeah,
it's growing,
yeah,
but it's not like the canopy tree that, it
Right.
fell in a rainstorm or whatever, it wasn't that size, it'll get there
yeah,
in a decade, 2 decades now.
yeah.
And that's
I
why,
think But I think that maybe it's something that we should look at in terms of the code, and instead of doing it's kind of like the stormwater management. Instead of doing a like for like tree, we should put something in where we improve the trees, because some of the trees that they take down aren't big trees to begin with, to clear these lots. But so if every time they take down a tree, we replace it with a better, more, nicer quality tree, that will help our cause for the, tree city. So maybe that's something we want to look at moving forward.
Okay, so that could be for a future work session, but before you consider voting on the motion on the floor, did anyone want to make an amendment?
I wanted to clarify Ron's reaction to what Shannon said, and you changed the language. Ron, could you repeat that?
Yes, so the motion would be to approve.
Well, wait a minute, so then you are suggesting that
Yes,
an amendment,
yes.
right, Mr. Town Attorney?
Because it's been
Yes, Mr.
seconded, yeah.
Okay, so why don't you read what the amendment would be so that Councilmember Rebecca can make the
Motion to approve
to
the application with the condition that at least one tree be planted being 2.5 inches in caliber at the time of installation of a species and at a location approved by the town arborist in advance, unless the applicant demonstrates at a subsequent hearing that sufficient trees exist on the property already, or to address council members' concern that or space is not available.
well, but wait a minute, isn't that, some of that is an amendment?
It's all, yes. most
Some
of
of that is an amendment to, okay, so you're gonna, so.
I think we have to vote the other.
So council, wait a minute, I think the council member Roback can introduce that as a substitute motion.
Or as a friendly amendment if it's treated as friendly.
But it was more than a friendly amendment, it was a substitute. So what, so do you wish to introduce that as a substitute motion.
I'm confused to
I'm
what I
confused
said.
Well, yes, you want,
Again, the addition that.
but
you added.
so you took Councilmember Barr's original motion that had been moved and seconded. And then you added some language that I was hoping would be an amendment to the motion.
Based on
But now that
Councilmember
you've
Rivas'
rewritten it,
concerns.
it's a substitute.
But can you repeat it so we all are on the
Yeah,
same page?
so why don't,
Just the last part.
okay. Why don't you,
Unless the applicant.
Okay.
Unless the applicant proves at a subsequent hearing that sufficient trees already exist on the property, or that adequate space for a replanting tree is not available.
That seems friendly enough to me.
okay, is that, so,
Robert?
Yeah, I'm okay.
are you down with that? Okay, so, since Robin introduced the original, it has to be a substitute. So, Councilor Romick, are you introducing as a substitute motion?
I mean, I can if I
Okay,
don't have
thank you.
to.
Who's seconding it? Okay,
Then I just
Okay.
take it as a friendly amendment and then we carry on.
That's fine, either way, it's fine.
but anyway, but it's not, but it,
Keep the
okay,
wheels
is
turning.
there further discussion on the substitute motion?
I have one question. Sorry.
Okay,
No, I think no.
go ahead.
Robin, I thought that you had indicated that you wanted you wanted a one-for-one substitution. You wanted two
No, I never
replacement
said two
trees, and then
trees. I
if
said at
they
least
showed
one.
something.
He said
Yeah,
at
I mean,
least one.
there may not be, I was looking at the house, and there may be space for one tree and not two trees. So one tree, yeah, I said at least one tree.
Right, so at least, but now it could be zero trees, the way it's written.
Depending.
I'm trying to understand.
See, I mean, right, you know, I don't see a lot of difference, but I'm okay with it between a forestation plan showing that sufficient trees are already growing on the property and no space being available. I mean, that's basically the same thing.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, are you,
thank you. Question
okay,
answered.
so does everybody understand? And,
Close enough.
you all seem to be supporting it.
Yes. Can
So
we vote
there's,
on it?
yeah, so if there's no more discussion, all those in favor,
Aye.
all those, thank you.
Can I,
Okay, so-
I'm sorry to belabor the point, but
Go ahead.
just process wise. So
I had one more.
the The idea is that the applicant they were approved for the removal. They'll work with Tolbert on a reforestation plan for at least one tree. If they decide and if they do that, they just get the permit and it's done with. If they decide they can't do that or it doesn't work, then they'll come back at a subsequent meeting.
Perfect.
Okay,
I
great. Thank you.
think the town attorney is requesting another.
No, he was joking.
No, he was joking. Okay, excellent, excellent. You all did a great job legislating. The next item, public hearing motion to consider adoption of ordinance 11-22-1. An ordinance to amend the code of ordinances to require the installation of house numbers on existing and future houses and to require certification of compliance in connection with the building permit as recommended by the Public Safety Committee. Mr. Town Manager.
So this was introduced last month. In essence, it requires as a standard permit condition that any new construction has a house number in a visible way in compliance with county and town code.
Okay, thank you, Council President Circo. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Councilor Barr.
So it incorporates the county code, and that's a good point because Kumar Vaswani's notes, if you saw in the margin there, pointed out that I went a little farther than the committee recommended. I was proposing to add a requirement that not just houses under construction, but any houses have the house numbers in accordance with county code, because it seemed to me to make sense to require all houses to comply with the county code. Otherwise, we may suggest to town residents that they only need to comply with the town law, not the county law, but both apply. So at the time of a permit application, an applicant would have to sign this certificate confirming that they're gonna have house numbers. And then in the future, houses need to have them as well, because otherwise they could just promise to have the house numbers at the time of application and then remove them afterwards.
Right. Okay. So this then makes the town part of the process of signing that you will commit to posting a house number while you're constructing the house and afterwards. Otherwise, that would be the county doing it only, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is that,
That's it.
okay, thank you, Councilor Howard, do you have any questions?
No, thank
Thank you, Councilor Kumar. Do you have any questions?
Is there a possibility on there is a house number, it's visible, but it is not in compliance with Montgomery County?
Sure, based on the size of the letters or numerals.
So because the goal here is safety and a visible house number, do we need to then have our own language that spells out that it's visible? Because I don't want, because since you've made this more than construction, there's possibly homes in town that are just fine, visible, an ambulance can see it, it's not an issue. Are suddenly not in compliance because they're somehow, incompatible.
Sure, so right now, proposed section 155-3 provides that house numbers must comply with County Code section 2297. So instead of that approach, we could restate the actual size limits in our code. Or, I liked that approach because if the county code changes, we don't have to change our ordinance.
But
A middle-
because your proposed ordinance is not just for new construction. It applies to existing homes where there may be no issue with house numbers. In terms of the real problem which we're trying to address, which I believe Mr. Vaswani is trying to address, which is safe, fire safety and ambulance can actually see the house number, and can get there in time. If there's no problem with a certain house number, then why bother with bringing them in compliance with the county code? Because that's what this ordinance will effectively do, right? Well,
Except that they already need to go
they should be.
conform their letters to county law, because county law applies right now.
So it already exists. Okay,
It's just whether or not the town wants to adopt that requirement such that the town has a duty to enforce it.
so we will go around asking people to change their house numbers.
No, as a practical matter, like other provisions in our code, enforcement is typically complaint driven. We're not going to proactively enforce this requirement, I wouldn't think, but if.
As we get-
If there's already county code, then I don't, maybe all we need to do is propagate that code and just inform the residents.
Hold on.
That's what I was asking. There are 2 points. One is that it means that when we're approving the building permit, we're also at the same time in the town getting them to agree to post a sign saying this is the house number.
Okay, why don't you hold that for when you discuss it, but
That's
do you have any other questions?
No more.
Because the chair is gonna be testifying.
Okay, sounds good. No more questions.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Roebuck. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, does any resident or guest wish to?
No, but as the mayor said, Chair Vaswani is with us, so I'll extend an invitation. If
Let's see if he can, I'm sure he was following all this. Knowing how good he is. So did you want to comment on the discussion, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can we,
I think that the code amendment
can we
speaks,
see you?
unfortunately, I don't have my camera hooked up.
Okay, fine.
Mm.
Okay.
Sorry. I think the code amendment speaks for itself, and our real intent here was that there are actually brand new houses that don't always comply with the county code on house numbers. And in fact, there's one house I noticed that received a permit for a renovation. They took the house number off and they never put it back on after they finished the renovation. And so this was intended to at least address those cases, because with 10 to 12 rebuilds or renovations per year, within 20 years, this problem will probably be taken care of. Now, it doesn't, guarantee that the house number is going to fall off, but that's what this was intended to address, was just new construction. But as the town attorney pointed out, it might be more practical to just require all houses in town to comply with the county code and give the town council the ability to enforce it. And that's up to you.
Okay,
me
well,
ask you a
let me, I think I'm gonna have, in the beginning, I should have had him talk, so I'm gonna let each council member ask, see if they have any questions. So Council President Circa, do you have any questions of the Public Safety Chair?
No, thank you for highlighting the issue.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barr,
No questions. Come on, what's wrong?
you went, okay, Councilor Helen.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Kumar,
Mr.
you have
Vaswani,
questions.
Mr. Vaswani is a neighbor of must be right now. Mr. Vaswani, I'm wondering, since this is already part of the county code, isn't the question then like for an enforcement issue? There's already a law. They're not in compliance with the law. Can't we just write to them and say, you're not in compliance with the law, please put your house numbers up? Why do we need another law to be able to take that step?
Did you hear the question?
Yes, I mean, you make a good point as to why we need to essentially duplicate the county law, but
It's not that there isn't a law, the point is a good point, but there is a law. We are, in fact, in our law saying, follow that law. So we might as well just follow that law. And if there are indeed homes like you've identified, maybe that's the practical thing to do, is for the Public Safety Committee to just say, these 10 homes don't have streets. Their house numbers are not in compliance with the county law. And we send a note to them and say, please put it up, because you're not in compliance with the county law. Having this is not going to give us more teeth, I think, to enforce it.
But I think some of the intent of the law, of the proposed legislation was that this be addressed when there are applications. So I think that would
The
be
building
valid.
permit, that part maybe. there
Right,
is
well,
a valid-
that was their original.
But now this is every home, and that's.
Well, that's because that's what have the town attorney decide to address them. It doesn't mean you have to pass it that way. So, Mr. Chair, do you want to again restate your original purpose for the recommendation?
sure. The original purpose was to make sure that a new house number or a code compliant house number goes up on a house that received a permit for a renovation or a rebuild. And that if you make this requirement part of the permit process, and if you require them to have the house number up before the permit can be closed out, that would really compel, the new house or the renovation to have the house number up.
That's fine. I mean, we could do that as part of the wall equivalent to the wall check, right?
But you can discuss, right now, the purpose is to gather information. We love the town attorney and all his suggestions, but it's not, you don't have to rubber stamp. You don't have to rubber stamp everything that he recommends. So did you have any other questions?
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Council Member Rovak, do you have any questions of the chair?
No, thanks.
Okay. Okay, are there any
No,
Okay, so I will now turn it over to the council president to lead the discussion.
So I think this is, I'm very glad that our public safety committee is, digging into various issues and providing recommendations to the council for action. Based on the question, I think Kabir has highlighted a potential issue with the way this is presented right now as sort of a duplicative code to the county code, when we could just simply have it as we incorporate the wall check, we can incorporate new construction to comply with this code.
Actually, Robin also highlighted that.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, problem. Thank you. So
So that
maybe we can modify it when somebody makes it.
can we
Robin?
modify it?
Sure. We haven't made a proposal.
One clarification, could we have it simply, where do we state the wall? We have a wall check bullet, right? There's a section in the building. Could we just add a phrase there?
That's
Wall-
exactly, yeah,
Well,
what's proposed here.
All right, thank
The
you.
wall check's done at the end of the process when the building is up. This happens at the permit time when they're seeking approval. So it's at the beginning rather than at the end, this process.
I don't think so. Is it at the beginning?
It's at the beginning that the applicant must sign the certification, that they understand the requirement.
Maybe
And
wall
then-
check has more teeth, actually. That we don't
But
close
so
up.
like, I think that, when those permits go up and like, they put the big thing in and stuff like that, like some houses don't really have the address written very clearly at the
Ah.
beginning of the process of like demolition.
So these are two different things. This is displaying the house number during the construction. And the second is displaying the house number with Mr. Vaswani. I'm going by Mr. Vaswani's example, which was they did the house, but they never put the house numbers back up.
Well,
When they took it.
it's both things.
It's both.
It's both things. So
Yeah,
then-
so it's just making sure that throughout the time of this building permit and whatever status the house is in, that the numbers are
Okay,
displayed in an appropriate way.
so could we do a revision and then vote on this in the working session? Maybe we need a revised doc that addresses, or we can do it now, whatever,
I mean,
but
Maybe we
this,
can do it now.
this code
Okay.
would do, but it's really about our process rather than about requiring a sign. And maybe that's what the code should say, that we will require as part of the permit process a signed statement from the builders that a house sign will be displayed that conforms to county code during construction and after the house is finished. So that would then be what the code is at that point. So the code points to the process. But as I said, the code as written, we could have our process be what I just described, derived from this code. We could do it this way too.
reading this wrong, this looks to address the first issue, which is the display during construction. But not the second issue, which is display post-construction. Am I misreading this?
So the way I addressed display post-construction was with the proposed amendment to the property maintenance code.
1155.
-3, yeah. Which is similar to how the county does it. It's I'm building maintenance / fire code issue at the county level versus a building construction issue.
But by doing that, you made it more than a construction.
Correct.
So could we do it as part of the wall check type of requirement?
Yes, yeah, and that's what the committee suggested, was that it be specifically enumerated permit closing checklist item, like wall check, height check. I didn't think that was necessary, but it can certainly be added if that's what the council.
Why is that? Why didn't you think that?
Because we don't have in the code And everything that the inspector is supposed to check at final permit review, like the inspector's checking everything. All the improved plans and specs, but we specifically reference height check and wall check because that's an expense. So I think we're sure they're aware of that when they get their permit. But it's not to say we can't add it. It just struck me as uncommon because we don't, highlight everything that the inspector must take a look at and, may suggest that one thing is more important than another, which isn't a big issue, but for me in writing code language, I just try to follow the customs practices that I'm accustomed to in writing code language.
Okay, what I would like to suggest, rather than trying to write this tonight, is that I would like to entertain a motion that we table this to the January meeting, and then during the work session, you can come up with some amendments or a substitute or some amendments to what's been introduced.
Right.
So who would like to make that motion?
Motion to what exactly?
To take, isn't it?
To table this.
Table the agenda item on approving the changes to 11.21 house numbers for a January meeting.
Is there discussion? So, and then we will definitely have discussion during the work session, so you can come up with the language.
Yeah, this is good.
And then it can be published and all that. Thank you.
And we can reintroduce that.
Okay, is there further? Well, I don't know if it has to be reintroduced, because it's just gonna be,
Well,
well, we'll talk about
the
it.
ordinances will go stale after 60 days?
Right, but this was just introduced last month. Isn't that right? Mr. Chairman? Sure.
No.
Yes, but then January 9, 60 days after.
Okay, well, anyway, so table it, table it, and we'll figure it out. Is there further discussion on the motion to table?
We could reintroduce it.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. It was a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of the reprogramming of $10,000 from the town's capital budget contingency fund to line 62907 town code consultant for the appropriation of funds to contract a town building and character consultant, Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, and I realized that I had one line in the agenda and one line in my memo. Really, either is applicable. But in essence, we've talked it out at the December work session. I'll have a draft RFP for the code consultant for us to do a character study of the town. It's not something that we specifically budgeted for. So I put this on the agenda after consulting with the council president and the mayor, just to get ahead of it so that we can hopefully get a contract approved as soon as reprogramming at that time. We can just take care of it now.
Thank you, Council President Circa. Do you have any questions?
No questions, just to know from my colleagues, this is to sort of help expedite the process. Previously discussed.
Thank you, Councilmember Barr.
I have one suggestion on consultant, which is that you might also get the consultant's opinion on what Jeffrey suggested earlier, that we get historical designation. It's get a sense of whether that would be appropriate.
Thank you, Councilmember Heller.
Good.
Thank you, Councilmember Kumar.
I'm not.
No,
Not gonna be your last.
Oh, you have a question?
I have, I mean, this just to sort of jog our collective memories. We are making lots of changes to the code. And I think this question was made, by you, Steve, or by Jeffrey, that we hire an external consultant to kind of do a comprehensive review of what exactly?
Well, no, this was town attorneys
So
Well, first of all, tonight isn't discussing. the-
I know,
Yeah,
I just want.
but anyway, this was the town attorney's suggestion based on his experience with the town of Chevy Chase, correct, Mr. Town Attorney?
Chevy Chase Village, Martin's Edition,
Yeah.
and Chevy Chase View.
Yeah.
And they were character consultants?
Yeah, an urban planner is.
Okay, excellent. So it wasn't like not necessarily design,
No.
because the word character. Consternation.
Okay,
with
well,
that.
I believe you supported this.
I did support it, but I think we may want to be very clear the terms of reference.
Well, I think
Scope
it's
of
our
work.
duty to,
Yeah.
if a resident objects, we should explain to.
So here we are hiring a part-time urban planner. To do
Okay.
a review of the
But
code, I think that would be.
but I think when someone has a question about that, they should ask us. 'Cause
Okay.
It's our duty to inform them
Okay,
and to not be along. Has many meetings, so.
urban planner.
Thank you.
I just want to
Thank
clarify. Character.
Well,
That's
anyway, it's, okay, Councilman Rovak.
I had a question, I just thought, lost it. Oh, would this person, when you, I think you had mentioned, just like our whole town in terms of like a historical district. Would this person? Get that, and that's what you had said, right, about those 50s ranch houses, okay. So that's all part of this.
Yeah, we hadn't specifically discussed that, but a council member bar. This context, I think it's certainly something we can add to it and.
I think that the whole idea was that you need more tools and information if you're going to change the code.
Exactly.
That's the whole idea, and that's the other municipalities. To a very successful rewrite of their code in this area.
Okay, no other questions?
And it's all the way you would, all if you wanted with the character. Okay, are there any comments or questions from residents?
No.
Council, are you prepared to make a motion? Remember, all this is moving the money so that when you do decide or not, as a person, then we can do it.
Right. So I move that we approve the reprogramming of $10,000 of funding as indicated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Final item of the year of the year for the council is the manager's report.
Yes, we'll end with a bang.
Excuse me. Am I allowed to ask? After he's done with his report.
When
Yes,
the
you
meeting's
are.
over,
The meeting's over, okay.
or.
Even
the
if
meeting's
meeting's
over. Yeah, okay.
So some of our major projects, got the roadway master plan, the RFPs posted, so, we've got it on the Maryland, e-procurement website, the MML websites. We're accepting bids through the 13th. And why bumping back the work session another week works in our favor in January, because now that gives a week to sift through the recommendations and possibly have a recommendation or so that the council can approve the contract in February. Not a lot of movements other than what's going on behind the scenes for the website. They're doing a lot of the stuff. In January, we'll start to have something that we can start to play around with then and look at an actual product and move forward with it then and start to get training, things like that. The beekeeper's been posted, scanning project has been completed. So they've sent over, samples, signed off on them, and they've actually now sent to our archived history files. The stormwater infrastructure plan, I just asked Doug to take one last look at that. I actually did it, but following a similar timeline as this roadway master plan, so we can get something in the early spring. So one, two things I wanted to highlight, I guess. Number one was our audit is wrapping up. So at the January meeting, we'll have our auditors here. They'll present the audit and the council. I get a sense of that. And then I did include here, one of the things we're looking at with the Public Safety Committee is our security and police coverage. I broke down what the other municipalities around us are doing. I haven't spoken to Kenwood, which I know Mayor Slavin suggested I reach out to because they have a different program in terms of the way it's made up. They have a private security rather than hiring off-duty police officers, so that might be informative as well. The one, we talked about the street lights. I have reached out to our Pepco representative. I was waiting for us to finalize the date, but he said he'd be happy to join us at a council meeting. I can invite him to the January meeting.
Well,
If that's what
or
or a work session,
or at a special session.
or a special, whatever we decide. In any case, he was amenable to meeting with us, and I explained to him all better. I think that generally covers it. I'll just
Okay,
leave
thank
it
you.
open.
Thank you, Council President Sir.
Questions? Thank you, Matt.
Councilor Barr.
Yeah, I'll start with Pepco. So you submitted the form again to Pepco, right?
No, because they told me that the application that I had sent to them before was the incorrect application.
Right.
So I didn't send that back in. I reached out to the team to say, I talked to a person from Cooper, which is the company that produces or makes the actual lights. And on their recommendation, I basically form copied what they. So we're not looking for custom lights. We're not looking for specialty lights. We just want to pay the upfront cost to replace our existing street lights with the in-stock LED options that Pepco has. The only person I've heard back from is the Pepco representative, but that he didn't respond to that part of that email string. He only responded to coming to meet us, but I did explain to him that this was one of the reasons why we wanted him to come in was to help us move forward on this project.
So you, at the moment, then you're expecting an answer from somewhere in Pepco to your submitted statement to them that all we want is LED lights.
I sent it to people at Pepco and CC Exelon, people higher up, as well as Mr. Zagata and the Cooper, hoping that the Cooper lighting people might have an incentive to light a fire under Pepco as well.
The one other piece is the Public Service Commission PSC that you might want to add someone from PSC on to it.
Okay.
All right, website. You said we will begin quality assurance the new year. What is quality assurance going to be? How does it look like?
Right now, basically what they're doing is program. We will get actual working pages. So we'll see what the pages will look like. We can begin to click on things and click through a version of the
Are you
website.
going to share it with anybody like the communications committee or?
Yeah. That's and then, so once we give the green light on that, then they'll finalize that. We'll begin actual training on the website.
All right. In scanning, have you been in touch with the history committee page?
Yes, because they were simultaneously doing their own sampling, their own archiving project. So both of them
Yeah,
are.
we've talked. The sources and ultimately you want links on the same page to the two different places, so somebody is.
Exactly, yeah. So what now kind of next step is figuring out how to make those accessible and stuff sift through.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council Member Heller, and why don't you make your notes?
On Friday at 1:30, there's a group meeting over by the pool, not our pool, off Fellendale Pool. It's the Maryland Department of the Environment. They are coming to meet with community representatives about looking at permitting process to build a bridge over Little Falls. And what that look like. I can't go because I'll be traveling to Philadelphia. You going?
I was planning. to
Matt's
attend,
gonna-
So, I mean,
John.
of course, anybody else is welcome to attend, but
Yeah. Okay, good. As long as somebody from here is going. Thank you. Didn't know you were on the list.
Did you have any? No, because I told, that's Jenny C. Donner's project.
Right, it is.
Did you have any questions there?
I don't.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Kumar.
Matt, again, thank you so much for moving on so many important projects. It's a lot of work. So really grateful. Just to have this at some point, if you can share the RFPs with us.
Okay,
So we all have that.
sure.
And then at a subsequent meeting, just to be clear on the timelines on the biggies,
Okay,
the master work, the solar panels, the street, just get the timelines.
yeah,
On the streetlights, that's great that we're gonna have the hearing. I would, as soon as possible, frankly. So I'm ready to do a hearing whenever we can.
okay,
Because we need, basically, it's a way for us to talk to them, yeah.
yeah,
So the sooner we can. I agree with Councilmember Barr that we probably, ideally, we have a live application. At the time of the hearing.
okay,
That would be ideal.
okay.
And then the third thing is for the police, I would again recommend for council meeting. Or to have a scheduled, sort of open invitation. Where they come on a recurring basis and we can chat with them and they are part of our town's critical safety service.
But we could have them come to a work session.
Or,
But
whatever, yeah, a work session.
Yeah.
sounds good.
But I mean, they meet with but the whole issue now is really which direction are we gonna go? So,
I just feel that I think it'll be a net positive for us to interact with them. And I encourage all of us to do that, and I think with a council venue, there'll be a good way for us to do that.
we'll figure it out. Okay, thank you, Councilor Rovak. Do you have any questions?
So with Pepco, I mean, maybe this person who's the representative who wants to come in for a town for, a meeting with a hearing with us, maybe we should just say to him, like, we need to know where this application stands before you can come in, because if he just comes in and doesn't know anything, then it's not going to be very helpful for any of us.
No, so it's not really a hearing, it's a meeting because the council members have a lot of questions. So since it's going to be all of you, it has to be an open meeting. And so it's not really a hearing, it's an opportunity for you to ask the government relations person from Pepco all your questions about why we're not getting streetlights, basically, what the problem is.
Right, but he didn't answer Matt's part of the email that asked about like this process of where our application is. And so if he doesn't really know, I think that he needs to answer that first. To him, what we're expecting from this meeting.
Yeah,
What I'll do is I'll touch base with him as well, just one-on-one, so he's prepared ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that it's not. I'll get back to you.
right, but the fact of the matter is that even if we had him here right now, his job is to work with governments. And if he doesn't have all the answers at the meeting,
The question's obviously going to be, what is so hard about replacing
Right.
our
Well, that's
streetlight bulbs with
I understand,
LED bulbs?
but
because
that's what we have
how it
to,
is.
Yeah,
it-
well,
it's,
and then, did anything, I don't know, was he the person that might street lights up down on Cumberland? that-
That's a completely different, that's a completely
E-
different
except
process.
that is different, except that is. You know, anything is on the table regarding Pepco at the meeting. So with our, this is a new Pepco rep. So you all understand how government affairs staff people work. So years ago, when there was a street light out, the town put the burden on the resident to call Pepco. And then when I came here, it's like, well, that's the job of the town. That's part of the concierge government that we have. And that's why we have, that companies have a government relations person. So if the person that's supposed to fix the light doesn't do it, the government relations person sure gets done. And when Kim Watson was the government affairs person, beautifully. You know, since then, there has been a merger, there's been all different, well, Tammy was excellent, but she left. And we need to establish a relationship with this person. That's why we're having this meeting. So it's any issue that you have with Pepco, they need to be responsive to. So whether it's anything you want to ask them is fair.
I
Don't be
misunderstood.
afraid. afraid.
He is the person that I emailed, so
But
he's.
don't,
He just said he was gonna look into it and report it to his team.
and you need to be frank with him that they're not responsive enough when we call.
Yeah,
So when Kim Watson or Tammy, it would get done like that. Now it doesn't, so.
That's the bottom line.
But that's the point of
idea
having
that
the
we
meeting.
inviting him here.
That's the point of having a
Will
meeting.
protect-
So,
Well, or.
Yeah.
He needs to show up here. It's gonna be harder for him to be brushing him off.
right.
Yeah,
That's the hope.
It-
Let's
it's
see,
the
he may
same-
be someone who
it's the same.
doesn't care, but let's.
It's
Yeah.
the same that we need to have a good relationship with the government affairs people. Yes, and from WSSC.
By the way, Tammy is now working for Comcast as their
Right.
third person, so she's cropping up again.
And she's another person, so she's another person, so. Because a lot of our residents are Comcast customers, so we should meet with her.
But for any existing outage, we let Matt know and it's reported to Pepco.
Yeah.
Right.
The turnaround time is all about.
Yeah, 'cause the
They're
one-
responsive sometimes they're not.
Well, that's
That's the question we ask. The
that's,
second question we ask is there are some persistent streetlights that every year break.
yeah,
What's up with that?
all, come prepared with all your questions.
Just you might at a prior work session brainstorm a list of questions.
We don't, no, you don't, we don't need, no, you all have your questions. We don't
We
need to.
can, if you want to.
You can brainstorm,
Runs
it.
the work session.
You can, okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Before, I did just
Yeah.
want to make one bit of good news that we did get our big income tax reporting in November, and it was above budget, so
Okay.
that's. a bit
That
of-
Good, so you can find-
Later in the year too.
Yes, yes,
Oh.
which those numbers are basically repeated throughout the year, so we will probably be higher.
That means that our residents are doing well.
They're working.
I thought, I really think that the COVID thing is a dip and then it's gonna rebound.
Not in.
We'll see.
We have all, our residents are, our residents.
We expanded
Okay,
our
thank you,
top line
everybody.
of hearing.
So some of you will see tomorrow night,
Yeah,
I'll see the chapter.
Yeah.
and then some of you will see everybody on the 13th.
13.
You're coming? Luncheon.
And hopefully